Hello everyone, today we're going to discuss on the first chapter of NCERT, resources and development. First, let's start by defining what are resources. Resources, anything that's available in the environment, satisfies human needs, and is technologically accessible, economically affordable, and culturally acceptable. And this is the definition of a resource. Let's look at a few examples. The oil, forest, iron ores, gold, diamond, human beings, all these can be considered as a resource. For there are many classifications of resources. There is that of origin. In origin, we can classify it as biotic and abiotic. Biotic is anything that's we can remember it by bio, which means anything living. So flora, fauna, animals, humans, all these come under the biotic component. Or it can be abiotic, which means the ores, metals, minerals, and these are the abiotic components of a resource. It can be classified under exhaustibility, which is renewable and non-renewable. Renewable, as you probably know, is the solar, the wind energy, etc. Non-renewable resources are which cannot be restored, you can say. The You can see the diamonds, iron, these can only be recycled, this can never be restored. They'll take millions of years again to form, right? Now let's classify it based on ownership. Under ownership, it can be classified as individual, community, national, and international. Individual, you probably own a house or a farm. These are all your own properties. So the land you own is a resource that you own. So individual ownership, your own house is an example of that. Let's take community owned resources. Community park is an example of that. National resource will be government office or government stadium, or these all come under a national owned resources. International is anything beyond 200 nautical miles of coastline of a country. Let's take the example. Let's say this is an island, and this is 200 miles around the island. Beyond this, anything is international waters, and it is owned by international agencies, and no country owns the international oceans, let's say, beyond 200 nautical miles. And it can be classified on the status of development, which means development is essentially on uh, let's say an 18-year-old is more developed than a 3-year-old, which means development is essentially on how the forward progression of a organism or a country. We can say US is more developed than India, because development is something which we measure going forward. So in Rajasthan, there is a lot of solar energy, but we have not yet utilized it to the full potential. So this is an example of a potential resource. Developed resources, anything, a human who is well educated to his IQ, or oil, petrol, all these are developed resources, and we are using them to the full extent. A stock resource is anything which we don't have the technology to access it yet. Let's take the example of ocean water. We probably can separate the salt from ocean water and use it for drinking purposes, but we are not yet technologically equipped to separate the salt in ocean water. So this is a stock resource. In future, if technology comes, we can probably access it, but in present we are unable to access it because of technological reasons. The stock and technology, you can remember it together. And reserve resources, we can use it, but we are not using it for future use in case of emergency, or for future generations. We are not accessing these resources. Overuse of resources, we have, for the past, after the industrial revolution, we are carelessly using resources without having any foresight, and because of this, this we have used coal for so long, there is not much coal left. This will lead to a scarcity of coal, and uh, too much price hike of coal in markets, and the rich become rich, get all the resources. Unequal distribution of resources happens if there is an overconsumption without planning of distribution. And global warming, ozone layer depletion, air pollution, all these we already know of. So we need to plan how we use resources. These can be achieved by two means, which is by resource planning and sustainable development. Sustainable development is nothing but development. Sustainable economic development is economically we need to develop, which means the GDP and job and industrialization can happen without sacrificing the forests and environment of the present, which means we need to preserve environment while economically developing, instead of just developing economically and uh, depleting the natural. And in the Ganga Doab region, there is a lot of fertile land, and they can provide food for Rajasthan, while Rajasthan provides the energy resource for the country. This is resource planning, which means allocating the resource beforehand, and going through the plan successfully. So as we can see, resource plus technology will lead to economical development. Just having the resource is of no use, as we can see that Turks had lesser army than Prithviraj Chauhan's army in Stanishwar battle, yet they won because they were technologically more developed with their horses and bows. And we can see this with in case of Babur also. He won with the help of gunpowder and advanced technology. Now let's see land as a resource. Uh, Land is very important resource. Our homes are built on lands, highways are built on lands, for land holds forests. So uh, you know land needs to be preserved. If not, during earthquakes, we can see how land being destroyed can lead to so much disaster. Degradation, overgrazing, deforestation, and mining. In mining, what happens is essentially the top layer is destroyed, and we dig deep, and the whole because we have to dig for the ores, the land is dug. So we can't build buildings here essentially because the whole building may collapse. This is the problem with mining and deforestation. Let's say there are trees and this is a river. If trees exist, the roots hold the soil together, and this when the river flows by forcefully, the soil doesn't get eroded. If there are no trees, the if water is coming through like this, all the fertile soil here will be eroded. So this is why there needs to be trees on the banks of rivers. If there is a lot of deforestation, all the fertile land will be gone away. And how to preserve land resources? We can control mining, do mining, only when it is required. We can plant trees in the banks, for example. Uh, and it's estimated that India needs 33% forest cover, but we are far from that goal. And we can do plant grazing, prevent deforestation. Now let's look at soil as a resource. Uh, Soil, we use soil for cultivating crops, and without fertile soil, the food needs will never be met. Let's uh, let's look at the types of soils. I'm just going to give you a bullet points. These are not comprehensive at all. Let's start with black soil. You can remember it by thinking it's in Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh, and mainly it's called black cotton soil because it's mainly used for growing cotton. Cotton is a commercial crop, and it's produced in vast quantities. Red and yellow soil. It's in the eastern and southern Deccan region, which means it's in this region. Eastern and southern Deccan. This will be Orissa region. This will be the Deccan. Alluvial soil. There is old alluvial, new alluvial. Old alluvial is called Bhangar, and the new one is called Khader. Bhangar is more fertile than Khader. Northern plains. Yeah, alluvial soil is present in the northern plains and in the Ganga region. Avid soil is in West Rajasthan and Gujarat region. It's very high in salt content. But let's look at different ways to conserve soil. Terrace farming, essentially there is a slope, and water is being slowed down throughout the way, so the fertile soil doesn't get eroded away. In strip farming, a patch of dry grass or any other crop is planted in with the normal rice and wheat. So this patch of strip works as a it slows the water, and it makes sure the soil is not eroded. And in case of shelter belts, it's essentially the same as strip farm, but instead of a crop or a grass, we plant trees. As in forests, trees hold the soil in the riverbanks. So planting trees preserves the soil erosion a lot. This is the overview of the chapter. To get a more in-depth understanding, please refer the NCERT textbook. Okay. Hello everyone. Today we're going to be studying the second chapter. This is called Forest and Wildlife Resources. First, let's look at a few community movements to protect the wildlife and forest resources. First, there is the famous Chipko movement. Here, people hug trees and to make sure the trees won't get cut. And it has expanded to even afforestation, which is planting of new trees. And you can say the Chipko movement is a successful movement overall. Next, there is the Beach Bachao Andolan. Here, in a year, the farmer plants 3 to 4 crops instead of just one crop. This is to ensure the fertility of the soil is maintained and to maximize the profit of the farm. Next, there is the joint forest management. This is essentially the village institutions and people and the forest officers work together to protect the forest. The villagers get they can cut the timber for fuel and also get a part of the resources of the forest. Essentially, the officers and the village people are working together to protect the forest from poachers and smugglers. Essentially, the people in the forest regions view nature. Uh, Next, let's look at types and distributions of forests. Most forests are owned by the government, and they come under 3 categories: reserved forest, protected forest, and unclassed forests. And reserved forests are essentially uh, mostly not in use. This is for future use. Protected forests are similar, and these two are called permanent forest estates. Uh, Sometimes they're used for timber, which is essentially wood, resources, and for protection. These two forests are for protection, and the unclassed forests are owned both by the government and private ownership. ICUN classifies daily 6 different categories. First, there is normal species. The sheep, cattle, buffalo, dogs, cats, all these things which you see in a large number every day, these come under normal species. Next, there is endangered species. The endangered species means in danger of being extinct. So, because we are continuing deforestation and reducing the habitat of theirs, they are in danger of being extinct. Black buck, crocodile are examples of that. Vulnerable species are close to being endangered. So you can say between normal, vulnerable, endangered. So vulnerable is close to extinct. So they are few in number but not yet endangered. Next, there are rare species. These are very few in number already, and if we continue to do deforestation, they will be endangered very easily than a normal species. Endemic species, they are found in a specific area only. Example, you can take the example of kangaroo. You can find them only in Australia. So these will be endemic to the region. Next, there are extinct species. After vulnerable, endangered, extinct, which means they are no longer you can't find them anywhere. Extent is not necessarily entirely extent from Earth. You can be extent from a particular state. They are no longer available in this area, or extent from India, or extent from Earth. Extinct from Earth example is Dodo. You can never find this species again. Or extinct species, dinosaurs, an example of extinct species. Uh, why are species being endangered? Let's look at the causes for why the species are endangered. First, under British India, there was a large railway setup. To set up the railway lines, large part of forests were cleared, and agricultural expansion. This is considered to be the most significant factor for setup. For this, large part of forests were cleared. Agricultural expansion. This is the most important factor. For mining, obviously, you clear the land and you dig under the earth. There is a lot of air pollution. Because of this air pollution of dust, a lot of species die. And currently, agricultural expansion is the main cause of deforestation and habitat encroachment. Next, grazing, timber collection. These are minor causes. For people believe timber collection is the main cause, but actually for timber collection you don't cut down the entire tree, so this can't be the main cause. Mainly the main cause is agricultural expansion. For this, a large parts of forests are cleared. Hunting of elephants and tigers and rhinoceros. People superstitiously believe that they provide medicinal value. So and people hunt them for their tusks and tigers for their skin. So this is a huge cause for species being endangered. Forest fires, conservation of forests. So let's look at the steps taken to conserve forests. In Indian Wildlife Protection Act, there were a list of protected species. None of these species can be hunted or made pets. Next, Green Revolution. In Green Revolution, for the same piece of land, you get more produce, so there is no need to expand into the forest. Community and foresters work together. As we saw earlier, in joint forest protection, the villagers and the foresters work together to protect the forest. Education regarding poaching. Informing the public about the problems is a key component in all the conservation efforts. Project Tiger. This was launched in 1973 because tigers were endangered animal and an apex predator. If the apex predators die, the food chain will collapse. Population. Why did the tiger population reduce? First, they were hunted for the tiger skin, which will be a luxury item. For medicinal value, in tribal regions, people still believe there is medicinal value in tiger bones or tiger teeth. Hunting, trophy hunting for tigers, and yeah, these are the other minor reasons. And with that, we complete the second chapter, and in the next video, we'll talk about water resources, which is the third chapter. Now let's look at the third chapter, which is called water resources. First, let's look at a bamboo drip irrigation system. In bamboo drip irrigation system, instead of pipes, we use bamboo, and we can increase the length of the bamboo pipeline and essentially reduce the flow of water to the plant. We can adjust it in such a way that only a few drops fall in a minute, and you can even get transport it over above roads essentially. Let's assume this is a road, and these are all forests, and this is the farmland. And essentially, if this is the river, the bamboos can travel above the road and into the irrigation facility. Now let's look at what a dam is. Essentially, when there is a river and it flows, and we can stop the river flow by building a dam, and it acts as a barrier. And when it's released, the water can flow through. On the surface, it seems very useful, and in most cases it is. But there are downsides of building a dam as well. Why are dams considered multi-purpose projects? What does a multi-purpose project mean? Multi-purpose means one purpose of a dam is irrigation, right? When you can't rely on rainfall, we build dams and we can direct the water whenever we want. That's the first purpose. It can also be used to generate electricity. So it is called multi-purpose project. Uh, we will later learn how electricity is produced by using water. Uh, you can breed fish in dams. You can control floods. If by not releasing, by holding the water here, a lot of floods can be prevented. So we can say the dams are for multi-purpose. Dams, uh, villages get submerged essentially because the river has so much water. When we try to stop it here, the rest of the water flows in and around this area. Uh, in this area, there may be villages, farmlands, etc. Because it's beside a river. Most of the villages will be located beside the river. So all these villages get submerged, and all the farmlands get submerged. So the displacement of the local people is a huge problem to the construction of dams. And if there is too much rainfall, dams can't control floods because they're not built large enough. Let's look at a movement. This is Narmada Bachao Andolan. This is essentially to stop the Sardar Sarovar dam. The movement was launched because there were so many villages getting displaced and not the right kind of compensation. Just giving them money is not sufficient. You need to make sure that their future is secured. The government didn't assure that, so Narmada Bachao Andolan was launched to stop the Sardar Sarovar dam from being built. It's in Sardar Sarovar dam will be constructed in village and it will stop the river Narmada from being flown. Uh, yeah, and uh, eventually Sardar Sarovar Dam was built. So you can say the Narmada Bachao Andolan, in its general sense, it didn't achieve its goal. Hydraulic structures in ancient India. Uh, the dams we may think are present modern technology and modern constructions, but in actuality, in Chandragupta Maurya's time itself, dams and lakes were built. In Kakatiya period, let's say this is land, because the Deccan region doesn't have much rainfall, the Kakatiyas and the Rashtrakutas had to build a lot of systems for agriculture. They essentially dug out this entire area and made it a lake. Ramappa Lake is an example of a lake built by Kakatiyas. It's beside the Ramappa temple. And Kakatiyas also built chain link tanks. This is a technology of the Kakatiya age and very advanced for that age. Why do we need water? These are the few reasons. River pollution causes. Yeah, just having the water resource is not sufficient. We need the water to be not full of toxins and it should be suitable for the consumption. Factories release waste. There is a lot of population, so all the domestic purposes, the rivers are being used. Wastes are being thrown in water, and in water, the buffaloes are washed. So the soap and detergent, it gets into the water. So the Ganga River is considered to be a toxic river. It's non-drinkable. If you look at 500, 600 years ago, people drank directly from the rivers. Now it's considered to be a toxic river. Let's look at rainwater harvesting. Let's look at rainwater harvesting. In rooftop rainwater harvesting, whatever the rain falls on the terrace, it's essentially collect, which you can, if there is excess water or you don't want it, you can release it into the underground water. And if you want the underground water back into your tank, you can use a hand pump. So it's a two-way flow of water. And there are no ecological problems or disadvantages to rainwater harvesting. It's encouraged that everyone bring back the system into their houses. We are using the water directly from the cloud, so there is no chance of contamination. And if it's not if it's not Meghalaya and you don't get rain throughout the year, this can be a good source of supplementary water. And next video we'll look at the fourth chapter, which is agriculture. Now let's look at the fourth chapter, which is agriculture. There are different types of farming. The first is primitive subsistence farming, also called slash and burn agriculture. Essentially, in the medieval and historic times, this was the most prevalent type of farming. Essentially, tribal people they burn down the forest, and in the because the forest area is so fertile, they grow crops in that area and wait for 3-4 years till the soil is no longer fertile, and they move to a different location, and they do the same even there. So this is called slash and burn. Slash and burn the forest and start agriculture there and move on to the next forest. It was now let's start with intensive subsistence farming. When the population pressure is high and there is a requirement to produce a lot of rice or any other item, this type of farming is used. The problem with this type of farming is that because of the deadline and need for high yield, the land is not taken care of, and this leads to low mineral content in the coming years. Next is commercial farming. In commercial farming, you grow commercial crops like rice, wheat, and cotton. These are called commercial crops because they have high profitability and because there is high yield. And all the modern technology is used. It's generally done by the rich farmers who have a lot of land to spare. Plantation. This is a type of commercial farming. Mostly coffee, tea, banana trees. All these are grown under plantation. The migrant laborers are used in the plantations. It's the difference between a plantation and commercial farming is that in a plantation, it's directly connected to the industry. Let's say there is a cotton. Here cotton is grown, and here it's transported to the textile industry directly. Here, let's say this is the factory. So, in plantation, there is a connection between the farm and the industry. Cropping pattern. Uh, it can Agriculture can be classified in the there are three main seasons or cropping patterns in India. These are Rabi, Kharif, and Zaid. In Rabi you basically the main major crop which is grown is wheat and peas, and in Kharif rice and cotton are grown. Uh, Rice needs a lot of water and rainfall, so it's grown in the monsoon season, while Rabi requires relatively lower levels of water, so it's uh, sown in December and harvested in April June. Zaid is in summer season, and watermelon, cucumber are the examples of Zaid crops. These are just some facts. These are groundnut and coconut. Coconut is mainly grown in Kerala, and groundnut is a very important source of protein for Indians. And tea is a plantation crop, as we have studied about plantations in the earlier page. Assam and Kerala are major tea producing states. Non-food crops, rubber, it's required for industries, and it's used for packing and for machinery. Uh, Fiber crops, cotton, jute, hemp, natural silk. These four are called four major fiber crops. But natural silk is not a crop, but it's made from silkworms, and growing silkworms for silk is called sericulture. Sericulture is growing silkworms for silk. Silk is used in clothes. Black cotton soil is required to grow cotton. So black soil was present in Maharashtra. So you can say Maharashtra is a cotton producing state. Jute, it's used for packing in industries, and impact of globalization on India. When India was exposed to Britain before, during the British rule, Indian khadi couldn't compete with the cheap British clothes. Essentially, all the cotton would be exported to Britain, and in Britain, with machines, they made cheap clothes, and they exported it back to India. Indian khadi clothes, which required a lot of time, couldn't compete with the cheap prices of British clothes. So this was the early exposure of Indian textile to British. This is not yet globalization of India, because India didn't exist back then. It was uh, it was a colony in 1917. Bihar, Indians were forced to grow indigo by the British, because the Britishers needed indigo because it was a major source of blue dye. But it became so intense that a movement was launched in Bihar. So far, we can see the exposure of Indians to the outside countries was not good. And during Green Revolution again, Indian farmers, instead of adopting their traditional styles, were exposed to the Green Revolution seeds, GMO seeds, and the produce was high, and it was considered to be a great advancement. But now we can see the drawbacks of it is that the fertility of the soil was reduced, and this is a conundrum that Indian farmers face. And yeah, 54% of the employed population works in agriculture or agriculture related fields, but the GDP of agriculture is not growing. Uh, and there are many causes for this. This is because the imported crops are much cheaper now, because and the taxation for the imported crops has reduced because of globalization. Uh, there is only so much land for Indians, and this can't compete with China's land, which is much bigger, and they can uh, outcompete Indian produce by a lot. No growth in agriculture, because there are only so many technologies. While if you take the case of a IT company, it has a tremendous growth in 10-20 years. While agriculture field has remained stagnant for the past 50-60 years. This is the last part. Bhudan Gramdan Revolution. This is the last part. Bhudan Gramdan Revolution was launched by Vinoba Bhave, inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. It is called the Bloodless Revolution because after Vinoba Bhave gave some speeches, the rich landowners gave away a few acres of their land to the landless farmers. This increased the output of the farms by a lot, because the landless farmers were employed, and they worked hard in their piece of land. Now let's look at the problem of inheritance. Let's say there is one huge farm. It will always produce four small farms owned by four different people. This is because the bigger farm will have better technology, and it will have larger profit margin, which can be invested back into the farm. The small farm will have small profits, and you can't invest in huge technology which will give better results. If in India the problem of inheritance is that after the father passes away, the farm is divided among all the sons and daughters. This fractions the land by a lot, and because of this, the yield is never increased. This is important. This ends the chapter, and next we'll look at the minerals and resources. Energy and resources. These are a few resources, and all the metals and our daily objects require the use of minerals. Your phone requires metal, which is a mineral. Diamond necklace requires a diamond, which is again a mineral. It's found in diamond ore. And light bulb requires metal to make. If yeah, these are the three conditions under which a reserve becomes a mine. If in a rock, if there is 50% iron, then it's profitable to extract it. If it's 1%, there is no point spending that much money extracting the little bit of iron. That's the percentage of mineral in the rock. Second is closeness to market. If it's some far off area like the bottom of our ocean, it's not feasible to get the uh, ore from all the way down the ocean, right? That's the closeness to market. And how easy is it to extract? This is the how accessible is the mineral ore. If these three conditions are met, then before it was a mineral reserve. If we start mining, it becomes a mine. Conservation of minerals. Uh, Minerals are formed through millions of years. All the dead animals, plants, they get trapped between the rocks, and uh, that forms the minerals. So these are essentially non-renewable. So if we overconsume them, we can't replenish them. See, if we cut down a few forests, we can potentially replant, and within 20-25 years, we can get a new forest. But it's impossible to generate coal or petroleum again. So there is a need to recycle the existing metals that we are using, and we need to develop alternate ways like solar, because we'll eventually run out of coal or petroleum. And energy resources are classified under conventional and non-conventional. In conventional, we have electricity, petrol, coal, firewood, and cattle dung cake. And in non-conventional, we have solar, wind, and atomic energy. Even biomass is non-conventional. This is a pure memory thing. There are three types of coals. This is the highest quality of coal, which is called hard coal, and this is the low grade, and this is bituminous. This is commercially used, and metallurgical bituminous coal is used in blast furnaces to smelt iron. This is a pure memory thing. You need to memorize this. And there are two ages of coal found. One is the Gondwana 200 million years ago age coal, and the second is tertiary 55 million years ago coal. The older the coal, the more hard it will be, and more quality it is. So the Gondwana coal is available in the Bengal region, and the tertiary coal is available in the Meghalaya Arunachal Pradesh region. Petroleum. Uh, See, this is how petroleum is formed. There is a porous rock, which means liquids or gases can pass through the rock, and there is the non-porous rock. Between these two, the petroleum gets trapped, and this gets compressed over millions of years, and petroleum is found. And above this, there is the gas. Uh, Petroleum is found in Gujarat and Assam. Natural gas. This is used for cooking and for heating purposes. In the Krishna Godavari basin, natural gas is found. Electricity, there is hydroelectricity and thermal electricity. In both the cases, regardless of which method is used, the electricity is the same in the end. In thermal electricity, we use non-renewable resources like coal or petroleum to drive the turbine to produce electricity. Uh, and in hydroelectricity, we use the waterfalls to drive the turbine, and we get electricity. We'll see how electricity is produced by tidal waves. And then now let's look at non-conventional sources of energy. Nuclear or atomic. Here, the nucleus of an atom is separated to get the huge amount of heat, and this heat is used to generate electricity. Uh, Uranium or thorium, which have high atomic weight, these are easier to separate than a small atom, and gate dams. And the high tide flows through this, and the gates are closed. After this, the waves, once this tide wave goes back into the ocean, here the water also wants to flow back to the ocean. Here it's passed through a pipe, and here it's used to drive the turbine, and you get the electricity. In case of a dam, it fell from a huge height. Here the tides fell from the ocean with a relatively large height, and you get the electricity. In case of a reservoir, it falls from hundreds of feet. In case of tides, it's only a few feet, but this can be used since tides are happening throughout the day or night. Geothermal energy, essentially in the inside the Earth's crust, if we dig deep, there is a lot of hot water being trapped, and if that hot water comes to surface, it just evaporates. It's that hot, and this steam can be used to generate geothermal energy to get electricity. Uh, it's still not a developed resource. it needs a lot of technological advancement. This is the same case with even atomic energy. It requires a lot of safety measures. These are a few ways in which we can conserve energy. And that's it for this. I'll complete the part 2 of this chapter in the next video.